Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the EJ Tech Show, and today we're going to be talking about not one but two smartphones. We've got the new Moto G10 Power and the Moto G30 in the house. Both phones very competitively priced, and at that price they do offer some decent set of features. So the Moto G30 is priced at 10,999 rupees and the G10 Power is priced at 9,999 rupees. And because both phones are from the same brand, you can expect similar or identical features in certain departments. But as the Moto G30 is slightly more expensive, it does retain some of the better specs like a high refresh rate display and also a slightly powerful chipset as well.
Yeah, both phones do seem very similarly spec'd at this price point, and again, at this price point, you expect these sort of specifications. You don't expect a lot of higher end stuff. But for what they do get, they perform quite well.
Yeah. No, look, I don't know about the G10 Power because you've been using that. Yeah. But as far as the G30 is concerned, I think this is a very good smartphone at this price point. And remember, with phones that are priced under 11,000 rupees, 10,000 rupees, you're going to have to pick your battles because you're not going to get everything. There will be some compromises. But in the case of at least the Moto G30, the pros definitely outweigh the cons, at least for me.
Yeah, similar experience for me on the G10 Power. It does make some compromises, but I think those compromises are fair. And the things that it does get, I think, are more useful on a smartphone at this price than, let's say, some gimmicky features.
Yeah.
So that way, Motorola has done well to fit these with the hardware that it has.
So let's start with the similarities first. So both phones, of course, run on the latest Android 11, which is great to see at this price point. Latest Android 11, plus you do get that near stock Android experience as well. So you do get that clean experience. Some people prefer that, some people don't. Also, Motorola does understand that some people don't like the stock experience, so they have given you that personalization and customization features, so where you can basically choose different themes, wallpapers, change the fonts and icons. So you can do all of that.
Which is kind of cool. Instead of getting third-party apps to do things like that, you can change the font, the color, the shapes of the icons, a lot of different customization
Plus,
built into
there's no third-party apps. The only one I can see is Facebook, and I think that can also be uninstalled. So bloatware-wise, it's absolutely zero, very, very minimal. So that's always a positive, at least from me. Also, for those of you concerned about security and data privacy, and naturally you should be, Motorola on both these phones does offer you something called ThinkShield Security, which gives you 4 levels of security that extends both to the hardware and software. So you do get that extra peace of mind when it comes to privacy, when it comes to security. So good on Motorola to include this feature. Of course, you get such features also with Samsung phones and other smartphone manufacturers.
Yeah, but usually not at this price point.
Not at this price point. And also, it's pretty detailed as well.
Another thing these two smartphones share is the IP52 water repellent rating, which means that yes, they will avoid or at least repel the odd splash here and there, although it's not best to like just submerge it into a swimming pool. Never do that with any phone. They also get similar utility features like a USB Type-C port, a single firing bottom firing speaker, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And they both also get Motorola's very special feature that they usually pack in, a dedicated Google Assistant button. Now, that's something that a lot of people are kind of divided on. Even you said it's quite high to reach. And I do agree with that. It is quite awkwardly placed. You have to shuffle your hand quite a bit to reach it. But it does help because let's say your phone is off, or at least the screen is off. You don't want to turn it on, have to unlock it in order to use the dedicated Google Assistant. You just press that button once and immediately the Google Assistant pops up right there.
So design, okay, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting. So the Moto G30, let's start with that. I'm not the biggest fan of this color. So this is the dark pearl color variant that Motorola sent us. And depending on how you're holding this on your hand, it'll either give you this deep purple color or it'll give you sometimes blue, sometimes green. So I don't know what's going on. It's like Motorola hasn't made their mind up what color they want to give us, and they've banged on everything over here, slapped on everything, and they're just hoping for the best. But that being said, it does get a nice matte finish, which just does definitely feel soft to the touch. And of course, this does come with a TPU case in the box, which the G10 Power for some reason doesn't get, but the G30
Although I will say, Motorola has made the correct compromise here, in my opinion at least, because they haven't given this a TPU case, but they've given it this really nice wavy texture at the back. They call this color grey, but I don't know what angle
But I'm guessing those wavy lines aren't there just for show, so I'm guessing they offer you a better
They do increase grip, and they do add to the design flair as well. It does look far more catchy to the eye than the Moto G30, but honestly, I feel like if this would have extended to the sides, it would have been even more grippy, and then it could have totally done away with the need for a TPU case at all. But still, it's quite nice to hold in the hand.
And as usual, you do get the fingerprint scanners, rear fingerprint scanners with
Yeah.
the Motorola logo etched into it. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's the most reliable sensor. It does open up the phone almost every time, but it only works if you can actually find it, because usually you have to go like this, or you have to try to find
Yeah.
it like that. So I usually do prefer side mounted fingerprint.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
scanners.
say. I would have hoped that by now Motorola would start moving
Yeah.
to the side-mounted fingerprint scanner. This is starting to look
Yeah.
just a bit dated, but then again, these are budget devices, so it is.
I
forgivable.
also think they don't want to do away with the whole Batwing logo on the
Yeah.
back. They do want to retain that. So I guess that's fine. But yeah, side mounted fingerprint scanner should have been a better option to go with. But okay, like you said, budget offering, so you have to deal with what you get. That's fine. This one also weighs at 200 grams, the G30. So it is a little bit lighter than that, which is 220
20
grams.
grams, yeah.
But the reason for that is because that one packs in a massive 6,000 mAh battery. This one gets a 5,000 mAh battery. If you don't go by capacity and what the size of the unit is, both these phones do offer you terrific battery life.
Yeah, they really do, because they also don't have very high power screens or chipsets. Everything is quite power efficient on the hardware front. So in terms of that, you actually do end up getting a lot of battery life. For instance, on this, I got up to almost 8-10 hours of screen on time with normal everyday usage. And I'm sure you got something similar as well.
So easily 2 days of battery life if I'm using it with light usage,
Yeah.
but easily a full 1 day battery life with medium usage to heavy usage. So very good that way.
yeah, and luckily, you get 20-watt charging,
yeah.
20-watt chargers
It gets
in the
that
box. with the-
turbocharge thing, turbocharge
Yeah.
feature that Motorola calls it, and it will take about 2 hours, at least in the case of the G30, to top it up fully from 0 to 100%. What about the G10 power?
Easily upwards of 2.5 hours, but that's also because it's such a large battery. And yes, it is faster charging than competitors, but it is still 20 watts. So
Yeah.
honestly, a decent compromise.
And you do
I'm
get
fine with
those
that.
intelligent battery features as well with Motorola that
Yeah.
does boost up the battery life, that does enhance it. And honestly, 6,000 mAh battery capacities at this price point, it's always a very, very welcome addition. Now let's talk about the hardware. Let's talk about the chipsets that you get over here. And this is, of course, like I said before, is one of the differentiating factors between both these phones that sets it apart. So Snapdragon 662 on the G30.
Snapdragon 460 on the G10 power.
And I'd say the Snapdragon 662 has now become the go-to processor for a lot of smartphone makers in this price range. And that's fine. I think the Snapdragon 662 works well enough for your day-to-day tasks. I didn't face too many issues. Plus, of course, you do get that 90 hertz refresh rate. And I think the Snapdragon 662 is better equipped to handle that high refresh rate compared to some other smartphone makers who give you even lower end processors and then they slap on a 90 hertz refresh rate, and it's not very smooth. But that's not the case over here, right? And also gaming, it's okay. It depends on what sort of games you're playing, because it does come, both these phones do come with the Adreno 610 GPU, so they can handle high intensive gaming, but as long as the graphics are set somewhere between the low to medium settings. If you go a little bit higher than that, you will notice some issues.
So yeah, both of them do come equipped with the same 4GB RAM. So yes, when it comes to being absolute powerhouses, these are probably not what you'll get your high intensive graphic workflows from. That being said, for day-to-day usage, they're absolutely fine. Multitasking is fine. There's no problems there. They feel very smooth for the hardware that they are actually packing. And I think a huge reason why there's no 90 hertz here, even though they do share the same 6.5-inch Max Vision HD Plus panels, the reason there's no 90 hertz here is because, like he said, the chipset, the Snapdragon 460, likely wouldn't be able to handle it, and it would become a very cumbersome experience. And that's good that Motorola said, you know what, it's better to give a 60 hertz refresh rate and let the experience be smooth than unnecessarily tack on that 90 hertz and then have it stutter all the time. That's a good compromise in my opinion.
So now that we've mentioned the display, let's get into that. So like he said, 6.5-inch HD plus LCD displays on both of these phones, 20:9 aspect ratio as well. Now yes, the G30 does get that 90 hertz for that extra smoothness as you're scrolling through the user interface or if you're scrolling on web pages. And it's great to see that, you know, the high refresh rate displays that were basically exclusive to flagship phones are now trickling down to this price point as well. More and more smartphone makers are adopting it, and yes, it's a great addition to have over here as well. But yes, like I said, you do need that chipset that can handle it, and I'm glad to say that the Snapdragon 662 can handle that 90 hertz display. But otherwise, if you remove the 90 hertz from the equation, like with the G10 power, They're absolutely fine displays. I think brightness levels could have been a little bit
Just
better.
a
You
bit.
do have to crank it to the max to really get optimal performance. But if you put both these phones side by side and play some videos, you won't really be able to tell which one is better because they get the exact same displays.
I do have one or two small gripes though with the display. One is the fact that the bezels and the chin are quite pronounced.
That chin is
and
very chunky.
Yeah, it looks a bit dated because of that. And another thing that makes it look a little dated is that U-shaped notch.
Yeah. Okay, guys, so let's talk optics now. And both phones get a quad camera system, but the Moto G30 does get a 64 megapixel primary sensor, and the G10 Power gets a 48 megapixel primary sensor. The other sensors include 8 megapixel wide angle lens on both phones, 2 megapixel depth sensor, and 2 megapixel macro sensors. So both phones, the other three lenses are absolutely the same, but the primary lenses, there is a difference because of that price gap. Now, I will say this, those two megapixel depth sensor, that macro camera, it's debatable how good those cameras really are, and we have talked about in the past that how useful, or if these sensors are even needed, right? But fine, it's there. It does offer versatility to some extent, so that is important to note.
Also, the good thing about Motorola is, even at this price point, they always pack in so many features
that
into the
camera
camera
app is loaded with features.
It's got cutout, cinematograph, videograph, I don't know what all. Like, half the time I open that app and there's like 6 functions and I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to use these. But if you're an avid photographer, you might like using all these functions.
And both the primary cameras on these phones, they take good photos in good lighting conditions. Colors are punchy, and it's definitely better than what the competition is offering you. A certain competition, but mostly they do take good pictures. Now, where this camera does lose its appeal is in night photography. You do start to notice that clarity just takes a complete miss. And there is a dedicated night mode over here, but then again, mostly, yes, it does brighten up the frame, but then it does also add a lot of grains and a lot of noise in the background. Like I said, overall, very decent camera performance at this price point. I'm very happy with the main sensor. And also
what about the selfies though?
Selfies are okay. I do notice a little bit of red tint, at least on my face. I don't know if that was the case with the G10 Power, but with the G30, the AI does do a decent job of giving you good depth and everything, and there's no main edge detection problems. I didn't notice anything like that, but it's okay. It's nothing to brag about, and it's also not that bad either.
Same on the G10 Power. It's all right. It's nothing to write home about, but yes, in low light conditions especially, of course, the detail and the quality does tank a bit, but for most day-to-day conditions, if you're in well-lit environments, then you're going to be able to get a decent selfie. Even portrait shots are pretty okay.
And of course, this phone does also offer you video recording capabilities. You can shoot at 1080p up to 60 frames per second, and this is good, it does get stabilization, but it's only EIS, but it's a nice feature to have.
Same here. This also gets 1080p video at either 30 or 60 FPS with electronic image stabilization. And again, yes, that is a good feature set at this price point. Again, we do know that Motorola does pack in a lot of stuff for camera enthusiasts.
Okay, so verdict time, and let's start with the Moto G30 first. And honestly, I think this phone is as powerful as it needs to be at this price point, because for a phone that costs under 11,000 rupees, you're getting terrific features. Yes, it does make some compromises, but that's okay. It's not a big deal breaker, and honestly, this phone is easy enough for me to recommend to anyone who's looking for a great software experience, who's looking for that smooth high refresh rate display, and also for excellent battery performance.
This G10 Power I would recommend to someone who wants pretty much everything that the G30 gets, but for 1,000 rupees less, because this does offer a very similar set of specifications, barring the chipset and that high refresh rate display. So if you don't really need those things, if you just need it for day-to-day usage, to make calls, maybe do WhatsApp browsing and content consumption, this is absolutely fine for that.
Yeah, but just to add on top of that, if you can stretch your budget by just 1,000 rupees more, it just makes sense to get this, because you are getting better specs and features with this.
Unless you like this design.
Yeah, unless you like the design, because the design over here, I'm not too keen on it. That does seem to offer you a better design and a better grip as well, but that's okay. But if you are stretching budget, then yes, if every penny matters to you, if it counts, then yes, you do have that at 9,999. But like I said, if you can extend it, then this one is definitely the better option to go for. But otherwise, both are very good smartphones at these price points.
Either way, no matter which one you pick, you do get to do cool things like this with Moto gestures.
Or this.
Yeah, that's the camera app.
Camera app. Yeah, they've been doing this with like every other Motorola phone, so that's why we didn't really talk about it. But when they don't provide these features, we will definitely chat about that. But yeah, that's it for this episode, guys. Do let us know what you think about the episode. Do hit that sub button. And of course, do download the Editor G app. We'll catch you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.